So the next thing that I want to talk about, y'all are in the trenches, right? So
Yes.
when y'all feel busy, it's inevitably comes to us, but y'all get it a little bit sooner than we do, So what are you feeling right now in this market? What's your vibe check?
Well, I have been showing like crazy.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have a few in title, but I'm ready, like I know as long as I'm showing that I'm,
so you feel it kind of picking up.
Yeah, I really do.
Yeah.
The phone's ringing, and a lot in our business, a lot of times even though the phone's ringing, you're problem solving just as much as, anything else. But,
yeah. No, I feel it too.
Yeah.
And I think, 23 was hard because everyone was like, well, they're not going to keep the rates up forever. Right. Yeah. And then that kind of trickled into 24. And was it 23 or 24 when the lake water got really low?
Yeah.
That was tough because right when interest rates went up, the lake water dropped pretty significantly. So it was like a double whammy.
Yeah.
And during that time is when Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac came out and said, we're no longer going to price second homes like primaries. Do you remember that?
Yep.
And so that was been like 2.5 years ago. And so the interest rates not only were already increasing, it increased even more. Second homes were now priced like investment properties, and the lake level was low. That was tough.
It was. I think I'm going to be honest. Last year was my worst year.
Yeah. But you still...
Yeah. I mean, I still did good. I survived, but, it was a bit of a struggle.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people feel that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of mortgage, a lot of mortgage people, loan officers feel that. A lot of real estate agents have felt that,
right.
And I think that we're finally on the uptick of this.
Oh,
right?
For sure.
So I was talking to a client the other day, and so back in 2020, when rates just tanked and the world shut down and it was scary, right? What I saw is that people saw these rates dropping drastically and felt like it was free money, right? And so they went and they would just buy up houses and put a bunch of money into these houses because they're like, well, I can still afford the payment, right? So what I'm seeing now is we have an overabundance of inventory still.
Yes.
Do you feel that as well?
Oh, it is.
We still have more listings than buyers, right? It's getting better, but it's still not completely level. I think people are wanting to start getting back into the market. That's the way I feel, at least. Have you felt that on your side?
Yeah. I really have.
And with people wanting to get back in the market, hopefully that will level the market out a little bit, right? Because we went from just such a hardcore seller's market to an absolutely hardcore buyer's market that sellers weren't willing to accept yet all the time.
They weren't. And their pricing,
Yeah, they still felt like it was 2024, but they felt like they needed 2022 pricing, which I understand because stuff stayed stagnant, the comps technically still supported it.
That's what I was going to say. It was like the comps still, it was really tough to explain to your client whenever you're running comps, how these numbers are still here. And you're like, but,
but at the end of the day, your home is only worth what someone's willing to pay.
Exactly.
And that's hard to tell a client that loves their home and has an emotional tie to their home and go, hey, I know that the numbers on paper support this, but we're not in this market anymore.
Exactly.
And I think that was tough.
It was very
emotionally draining too, because you're having to, I don't want to say be the bad guy, but reality check maybe is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And I feel like now sellers are finally to the point where they see that it's a buyer's market. Definitely. But it took longer than I've ever seen a buyer's market take.
They were holding steady and firm. They were wanting their house to get every dollar. And what was sad was a lot of the people had bought
at the prime.
Yes.
Yeah.
And wanting to sell now, and that's such a hard discussion to have. And when you're sitting in front of a client and you're like, well, how much do you still owe on your home?
Right. Yeah. Well, it's no different. Like we're getting clients that want to refinance, right? That bought, maybe they bought in 23 and 24 when they were able to get, better deals, right? And like, have the seller help them with closing costs and things like that. But most of those people didn't have a ton of money down, right?
Yeah.
And so when we're looking at doing specific types, and this isn't the case, a blanket case, but when you're looking at doing specific types of refinances, you have to have some equity there to build in, closing cost, or maybe that appraisal came in $5,000 less than when they bought it. It's nominal when you're talking about selling it, but it's not when you're talking about fitting a, equity into a box for us to get them into a lower interest rate.
Yes.
And that's the same conversation that y'all were having to have a year ago with sellers of like, hey, look, the math ain't mathin', like at the end of the day, we have to tell them, that's hard.
It is really.
So how do you, like, when you have to talk about those things, how do you go about that? Like, what does your conversation sound like whenever you have to talk to a seller that maybe thinks that, they have more equity than you would suggest they would?
Yeah.
Put it that way.
Well, it's a tough.
It's hard.
Yeah. It's tough. And a lot of times lately it's been pretty good because they have showed me their what they still owe, and then we'll compare it to the comps.
Yeah. Kind of work backwards from that.
Yeah, we do.
I think that's so important, because a lot of people too. Here's a great question that I need to know from your side, because it hasn't really affected the lending side too terribly much. Maybe 2 deals I've had, but the NARS settlement and all of that.
Oh yeah.
Has that changed the way you kind of have to talk to clients about this?
It for sure has, because, I've always been one of those agents that I want to represent a client and them to trust me.
Right.
Yeah. And before they have to sign a buyer's rep.
Yeah.
And so now we're having to put that in front of them first day.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of times that can be a little like intrusive, like
it feels so transactional.
Yeah, it does.
Right? And I think that's the weird part, because you and I are so relationship based, and we have fun. Right? Like, we have fun with our clients, we have fun with each other. And so to make that first interaction like, hey, sign this piece of paper, you owe me money. Like, it's a weird conversation.
It's a weird conversation. And it's nothing new. Like, buyer reps have always been there, but you usually are, once you already established a relationship, before you have to make someone sign something like that. So. Yeah,
it's not that day one of like, hey, I just met you. Sign this paper. So how, like, what is your conversation sound like? Because your retention rate is incredible. Like, we've talked about that. Like, when you take on a client and you get a lead, like, your retention rate and your success rate keeping them is phenomenal. So for a baby agent, right? Like, someone that is getting new into the business, how does that how do you segue into that? What does that conversation look like?
Yeah, well, I just try to be upfront and honestly. And I'm like, hey guys, if you don't like me, I will, this piece of paper, you're not bound to me.
Right.
I want you to like me. And if you don't like me or trust me, then I wouldn't want you to have to work with somebody you don't trust or like. So I'm just very transparent.
I love that. And I think I think people don't respond well, even in, on both sides, right? People don't respond well when they feel trapped.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean?
Or pushed. Like a pushy salesman is awful.
Oh yeah. No, it's the worst. And so I think that's also where we're like-minded of like, hey, I strive on every single transaction to give whoever I'm working with a phenomenal experience with a personal touch. Right? And you do too. Yeah. And so when you get sometimes your personalities don't clash, or sometimes it isn't right. I hate to keep using this word, but a vibe, right? Like it's not the right fit, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. It's okay to recognize that, but it's also okay to try and figure it out too, and learning that interpersonal style that you kind of have to evolve into.
Yes,
right?
Yeah, you really do, and we always have that initial conversation about, are you working with a lender? Tell me about, if they do have one. I'm like, okay, well, because we're in a different type of market here and we're in water, and as well as our area, we got to make sure that they have the right person.
It's a weird market down here, right?
It is.
Like, we're not, I always joke, and it's kind of true and kind of not, but I always say, like, Cedar Creek Lake is one of the only places in the world that you will have a $500,000 manufactured home next to a 6,000 square foot, $2.5 million home, right? Like, and that's not abnormal here.
You find it.
You
Most
find
the
it.
neighborhoods are starting to get like eliminating some of
Yeah,
those,
no, totally agree.
Yeah, but yes, you do find that, and it's
you have to know how to handle it.
Yes, you do.
And I think that's something that
so you always want to have those conversations to make sure they have not only the best agent,
right,
but the best lender and the appraisers and all those things. Yeah, the team.
It's a team
to build around that client.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Do you know what else that I appreciate about you so much is that I never worry about an email or a text or a phone call going unread or unnoticed.
Oh, yeah.
Seriously.
I get anxiety. I'm going to be honest about that. That's with anybody that I work, like, if I work for them or if or I'm their client, if you send me a text and I don't respond, somebody better go check on me.
Come look for you, is that what you're saying? But
But
it's part of our communication style, because you know me, like I'm all about, like, let's talk through this together. Let's come up with a game plan. That's so important to me, and having that open communication. And I just, sometimes you work with people, whether it be a client or a listing agent or whoever, that you might not hear from them for a few days. Right. And that's hard. It makes it hard. And then it gives me anxiety, because I'm like, where are we at? What is going on? And nothing's wrong. It's just, me going, I want to problem solve. Like, I need to talk to you so we can problem solve, because there's certain things that just can't be said through a text, that you need to have a dialogue, an open dialogue between that.
I agree with that 100%. Communication is the key.
It is.
And
I think it's so important.
Real estate, life, everything.